Hey everyone, Sundowner here, and welcome back to another installment of BioShock Infinite. So, well, I had to go back because of the weird checkpoints in this game to get some stuff, but we will be moving on into this ominous location. Pretty interesting imagery going on here. And of course, going back to spend that money was pointless because there's a salt potion right there that I didn't really need. I really like this place because it's getting really dark and moody and the tone completely changes, but off in the distance you can see Columbia still bustling and celebrating the day. I don't know, I thought it was a pretty cool contrast to see. And this is pretty dark. It's a statue of John Wilkes Booth, known famously for assassinating Abraham Lincoln. Who, as you know if you've been paying attention, is kind of, well, he's not very much in the favour of our father the prophet, Zachary Comstock. I have to say, I really love when I get into a combat sequence, but there's some of that period music playing in the background. It just sets a really nice mood for the whole battle, and it's, once again, the music in this game is just absolutely amazing, so oftentimes I find myself stopping just to listen to it.
Alabama, them fools will have to hold their head right up or lose their upper lip.
Now there's something pretty interesting about these paintings that I didn't think about before, is that on one side we have what appears to be a top-hatted Abraham Lincoln, looking a bit like the devil, and on the side we have George Washington, pale, bright, and in white robes, somewhat like the devil and angel on your shoulder, perhaps.
Columbia gave unto the founders the tools to build a new Eden. They did so without hesitation. For 85 years they prepared the way of the Lord. But when the great apostate came, he brought war with him, and the fields of Eden were soaked with the blood of brothers. The only emancipation he had to offer was death.
I decided it would be best just to play voxophones as I find them, as they tend to be placed in locations that it might be more contextually sound to hear it then rather than later. There may still be instances where I have to play it at the end of the video if there's something more important going on, but for the most part we'll stop and just listen to them then. And here we find a painting of John Wilkes Booth assassinating the proposed to be devil that is Abraham Lincoln. There's something just a little bit eerie about the fact that this is in a dining room. Could you imagine people nonchalantly eating their meals while hanging above them is a painting of an assassination of a man who they believe to be a contrast to their own beliefs? Not to bring the tone down too much, but when you start to think about it, the game is pretty dark. But nevertheless, let's press on and find out what else is in this weird culture shock of a building.
And so, the prophet led us into Peking, where we demonstrated to the solemn below the true mission our founders had given us. And when the mandarins and hypocrites of Washington betrayed him, our prophet did not heal. He did not come crawling for their forgiveness. Like our fathers broke with the great apostate, our prophet broke with these so-called patriots. And today is the day we celebrate this secession. You'll be sorry.
Oh, those combat sections never cease to be quite visceral. No matter what people say, I'd still tend to say that the combat is extremely impactful and fun to play. It is just a little bit tedious that it comes so often, but again, it's one thing I can put up with for pretty much everything else in the game. On that note, I just want to point out that I actually increased the field of view of the game beyond the point where the game would deem maximum, so if you ever see some little visual glitches, then that's generally why. It is not the game being unpolished, it's just me forcing it beyond its intended limits. And we have another audio log from Comstock, so let's check it out. This one directly relating to Abraham Lincoln.
What exactly was the great emancipator emancipating the Negro from? From his daily bread, from the nobility of honest work, from wealthy patrons who sponsored them from cradle to grave, from clothing and shelter. And what have they done with their freedom? Why, go to Finkton and you shall find out. No animal is born free, except the white man. And it is our burden to care for the rest of creation.
Now, I really wish my knowledge of the history of America and Americana in general was a lot more brushed up than it should be, so if there's anyone in the thread who feels they may be an expert or aficionado, then feel free to elaborate on pretty much everything seen in this building. And aside from that upgrade, here's the key for that chest we found in the previous update, so now we're going to have to backtrack, go there and see what was in there all along. And we have to head through here, and for some reason all the enemies respawn, so we have to kill those, through the building with the progressive couple, up here onto the skyhook, and then back into the building to find the chest. And it's, well, another upgrade, which is pretty damn useful, believe me. We're going to put this one into the shields as well. As I said, I'm going to tend towards that for a few upgrades, and then we'll focus on other things.
This afternoon, the scoundrel, believed now by many to be Vox Populi, began his terrible rampage. Trouble began almost instantly. Full of wrath and bent on harm, the anarchist maliciously wounded several Colombian peacemakers, before then arming himself and firing into an assemblage of virtuous fairgoers. As of this hour, he is considered wholly responsible for causing at least 8 God-fearing Colombians to meet their Maker in heaven. He is considered brimming with danger and evil intent, and we implore you not to tempt ruination by facing him without aid of Colombia's finest. Now, back to the music.
Back to the music indeed, so you can hear them already spinning the events of today to look as if I'm the true bad guy. Just another thing that contributes to the idea of Comstock somewhat brainwashing the denizens of Colombia. Well, let's move on. So this Latin scripture here is supposed to read, "We dare to defend our homeland," which I'm sure some of you will be familiar with as the state motto of Alabama, which is "We dare defend our rights." Although I believe it's actually misspelled here, where it says Patria Nostra, it should be Patriam Nostram, but I am no Latin expert. I just did a little bit of research on this and, well, that's what I found. I guess in the end it's just a case of Romanes Eunt Domus. In this room there's a little bit of a slideshow here called the Comstock Phrenological Study. I've been having a little bit of a debate with myself about what it may mean. Now, the first frame is of Comstock, or rather of a brain, and then it flips to an image of Comstock, and then you see Native American, then another brain. They look identical. Now I've been thinking to myself, does this mean that Comstock is equating himself to the Native American who, of course as we know, were the natives to America, the original or the natural habitants of America? Is Comstock equating himself to that and saying that perhaps he is on the forefront of a new land, creating new life for everyone? I don't really know, but I would love to hear what you think of that.
Sweet Mother of Columbia, why do we worship 3 symbols in your memory? We worship the sword, so that we might avenge you. We worship the raven, so that we might cover the city with eyes. We worship the coffin, because it symbolizes the weight of our faith.
And if you recall back to the opening of the game, where we are washed out onto the faces of the Founding Fathers, presenting us a key, a sword, and a bell or scroll or document. Pretty close parallels there. Well, this little secret room doesn't look too welcoming, so I don't want to be here for too long, but, well, it's good that we came here because we get our first glimpse of gear, which is just what it sounds like. So this game actually has a bit of a loot system, and it is randomised. You get a hat, a chest piece, leggings, and boots, and they all do various different things, and some of them are extremely potent, but we'll get to those when we get to them. As I said, they are randomised, so this one is pretty dang useful. We're going to get a better shield recharge rate, and it's going to recharge a lot faster as well, so that's useful.
Why do you do this? I just want to go back to my family.
I'd like to apologise on behalf of the game. That probably came out of your left speaker there. I don't really know why. It's done that every single time I've played the game. And that looks to be the guy we heard ranting and raving before, whereas this guy isn't looking too hot. And once again, that music is just contrasting so well with the scene. This is something I'll never get tired of talking about, but, well, things are about to get pretty hectic.
You defile her name!
Okay, so he is kind of supposed to spawn in front of me. He didn't do that, but whatever. This is actually a pretty hard fight just because of how often and how fast he can move. Oftentimes you'll miss him a multitude of times before you actually hit him. It's pretty good to just set down some of these Devil's Kiss traps, which I unfortunately didn't do because I burned them all thinking he would spawn where he normally spawns. There is a salt bottle there, but, well, I'll get to that in a moment.
No mercy for anybody!
Probably smart not to throw it directly where he is, because chances are he will just teleport away. So try and throw them around somewhere and kite him into him just like that. And there you go.
What's this? It's a new kind of vigor? That's a hell of a thing.
Press to summon murderous crows. Hold and release to create a nest trap.
I mentioned before some of these animations are a little bit gruesome. This one, not so much, but believe me, they'll get worse. But that's Murder of Crows, our next vigor or power up. And this one is pretty good. You lob it onto the bad guys, it swarms them and, well, picks them to extreme vulnerability. I guess you could harken this to the rat swarm power found in Dishonored, but I wouldn't say they are. It's a rip-off or anything like that. As you know, birds and rats chewing things to death isn't exactly an alien concept to video games. We get another piece of gear here, the Burning Halo, which is unbelievably good. Essentially, when you melee someone, they go into a ball of flames. Oh yeah, here's a familiar friend. Some of you may have played the original BioShock games and, well, you know all about wrenches. Unfortunately, we don't get to play with one. Why? I have no idea, because that would be amazing.
The false shepherd, this anarchist, is either a mulatto dwarf or a French man with a missing left eye. No more than...
Bet I can get to Monument Island from that station.
I really wish I could stop for longer at times just to look around and show you the landscape, but, well, that would make videos extremely long and extremely lacking in content, but, well, there is a sightseer here, so we can take a look around, get a little bit of a closer look, see what's going on here on Monument Island. There's also a little man in here. I always found that funny. I think it's just a simple cardboard cutout or something to emulate an actual person piloting these things. Just another thing that contributes to the weird vibe going on in Colombia.
his eyes were bigger than that. Squinty.
Oh, looks like a couple of cops. I'm gonna have to... Oh boy. I couldn't tell if I killed her or if the cops did. I feel bad either way, but there wasn't much I can do. My life was in danger. Anyway, let's get out of here. Just sounds like they were doing some kind of criminal drawing. Hold on. Wait a minute. That face looks awfully familiar. I'm not really sure about that. Let's just move on, I guess. I really love that he was screaming as we were coming down. There was like no escape for that man. And then he gets set on fire. Oh, what a sucker. So when we get in here, I'm going to attempt to show off one of the vigor combinations, and they are essentially what they sound like. You use one vigor on a bad guy and then switch to another and use that, and oftentimes you'll get some pretty potent and interesting combinations. Right now we can't do much with what we have, but I'll show them anyway to give you an idea of how they work. Huh. So this Lutece. Pretty interesting individual. Maybe we'll see more of them. And here's the upgrade for Possession. This one allows us to possess bad guys. Unfortunately, I didn't actually show off one of the combinations with Possession and Devil's Kiss, which is really fun. But I will do that in the next update. I forgot I bought this, to be honest, and well, I'm going to have to deal with not being able to show that off for now.
Possession now turns machine and man into allies. Hold and release to create a ghostly trap.
Show yourself!
Okay, so the game may have crashed, my apologies. Just getting back to where we were. Alright, let's try out one of these vigor combinations. So first, hit them with the crows. Then, hit them with the fire. Unfortunately, they weren't really grouped up enough to show off the true effect. Essentially, you set the crows on fire and that may go on to either set the man on fire himself or harass other mooks around the area, which just one of those kind of chain effect things. It's pretty fun, but it is certainly not my favourite combination. We'll get to that soon though. Oh, that piece of gear never stops being fun. Setting guys on fire as you punch them with a metal hook. How could it be more satisfying? Well, they could explode into 100 jibs, but, well, we're not playing a Doom game, so it is what it is. As with the end of most fights, you're just going to go around spamming E, picking up all of the silver, all of the health, all of the cakes, all of the trash coffee, whatever you can get your grubby mitts on, or whatever Booker really wants, I suppose. So we're about to get introduced to a new game mechanic here. I just want to make a quick warning. This is probably one of the most addicting things in the game, more so than setting people on fire with punch hook gauntlets. Yes, it is the Skyline. This thing is so fun.
We're sorry to say that Monument Island is off limits. You've got to go. Workmen should proceed to the island by means of the Skyline.
Skylines, huh? Those things them coppers came riding in on back by the lot.
And they are extremely versatile and useful, which is something I really like. They managed to incorporate it into the gameplay in such a way that it's actually fun and useful consistently, as opposed to a kind of gimmicky thing that you can only use every now and then. I'll go into a little bit more detail about them in a moment. I just want to show them in action right here.
Give heed, believers. There is menace. There is threat. The false shepherd here in Columbia, full of hate and...
Oh look, another upgrade. That's pretty useful. Now we have 4 shields and it's almost at max health.
Feel better already.
Me too, Booker. Me too.
Hastens to her tower even now. His intent is ruin.
Yeah, you kind of want to stay away from fire puddles if your punch sets things on fire. Yeah, keep that in mind.
And the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great, and he repented he had made man on the earth. Rain. 40 days and 40 nights of the stuff, and he left not a thing that walked alive. You see, my friends, even God is entitled to a do-over. And what is Columbia if not another ark? For another time.
I feel kind of weird about that recording because it doesn't really sound like the Comstock we've heard in other recordings. Now, as far as I'm aware, there is no thematic choice there, there's no consequence to that. But it's kind of odd that the voice actor didn't quite put in that Comstock fervour that we are so familiar with so far. Nevertheless, let's press on and get more of the skyline action going. I should probably detail the controls. So you can slow down, you can also go fast, and I mean pretty damn fast. You can also just press C and turn around on a dime, which is, I don't know, kind of unrealistic, but at the same time it just adds to how ridiculously fun it is to use the skyline. There's also a great deal of combat with other bad guys on the skyline, but we'll get to see that later on in the game. Right now though, it's a pretty interesting conversation between a couple of guards here.
Better start busting down some doors. I'm not busting down any doors. You know what kind of swells live here? Did you hear what this guy did? What do you expect from an anarchist? Fitzroy's got them all trained like dogs. They go for the throat. And he draws blood today. Today of all days. You know what? Best we round up anybody who's got a kind word for the Vox. When it comes to an anarchist, word's just as bad as a deed. I've been thinking the same thing. You think the Prophet's gonna let this pass? There's gonna be blood in Finkton before long. Serves them right. Anarchists, unionists, misogynists, we let them into our city and look how they thank us.
This is so weird. Now, I'm not saying that the game should necessarily support misogyny, but you would think with such a heavy religious and Christian theme going on that misogyny might be a value that they sort of evoke and sort of support in some way. But for some reason they are completely against that. They allow women to be in their military forces and they thwart misogyny, which is, I don't know, obviously it's on part of Ken Levine and the guys at Irrational Games, which I really do appreciate. It's just thematically a little bit dissonant, but maybe that's just a little bit of the alternate history and artistic license taking place. And you know what, it's all too easy for games to kind of reinforce certain things, even if it is passed off as a bit of a thematic thing. I do appreciate that even though there are some strong themes going on here, they're still able to completely remove any of that reinforcement, and I just say good job to Irrational for doing that. Now though, we are about to be addressed by a very, very important man.
Stand down! Stand down!
He who crossed the Delaware with flaming sword and the wings of angels, watch over me and lend me strength.
Father Washington, hear my prayer.
I know why you've come, false shepherd. I see every sin that blackens your soul. Wounded Knee, the Pinkertons, the drinking, the gambling, and of course, Anna. And now, to repay a debt, you've come from my land. But not all debts can be repaid, Booker.
You don't know me, pal.
Prophecy is my business, Mr. DeWitt. As blood is yours. Do you know why these men will die for? Because I've seen their future in the glory, and hence they are content. What brought you to Columbia, Booker? Bring us the girl and wipe away the debt? This will end in blood, DeWitt. Then again, it always does with you, doesn't it? It always ends in blood.
Jesus.
I don't know about you, but that is pretty chilling with the weird effect they had on the camera there, showing Comstock's large face. Just chilling in general though, hearing what he has to say about us, and seemingly what he already knows about us. I'm sure we'll find out more about that as the game goes on. Father Comstock, our prophet.
You've come to lead my lamb astray, but thy crook is bent and thy path is twisted. Go back to the Sodom from which you came!
I have to wonder though if at this point Comstock would actually let us leave. Could it be so simple, or would that too end in blood?
Go back!
Holy shit.
We will catch.
I'll kill you.
I gotta find the controls to take this thing to Monument Island.
And we will, Booker. So would you kindly tune in next time for more BioShock, and until then, as always, thank you for watching.